Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that you mistook their control for care? What if the person helping you heal was the one quietly pulling you apart? I used to think therapy was a safe space, a sacred room where your secrets were honored, your pain was understood, and your mind was protected. But what if the person across from you, the one taking notes and nodding kindly, wasn't trying to help you at all? That's what happened to me. And to this day, I still can't tell you if I was his patient or his experiment. Asterisk, before I tell you this story, I want you to do something for me. Asterisk, wherever you are, sitting, lying down, or scrolling mindlessly, just pause for a second. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. If you can, I want you to imagine the sound of rain against a window, the faint hum of a city outside, and a quiet room lit only by a single lamp. That's where I'm sitting right now, and that's where this story begins, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another story, Dot. It's something that could happen to anyone, maybe even you. Asterisk, when I first met Dr. Samuel Reed, I was in pieces. A 6-year relationship had just ended, abruptly, painfully, and very publicly. My ex had been charming, intelligent, and terrifyingly manipulative. He left me doubting my own memory, my emotions, even my sanity. My friend Lisa had begged me to see a therapist. "You need someone objective," she said. So I searched for trauma specialists in my city, and Dr. Reed's profile stood out. He was well-spoken, kind-eyed, with testimonials calling him life-changing and brilliantly empathetic. The first session felt different from any therapy I'd ever had. He didn't just listen, he studied. Every word, every breath, every pause I took between sentences. When I cried, he didn't offer tissues immediately. He waited, watching how long it took before I reached for them myself. At the time, I thought that meant he was perceptive. Now, I know it meant something else. Asterisk, after a few weeks, I found myself looking forward to our sessions. He remembered tiny details, my favorite tea, the book I was reading, even how I twisted my ring when I got anxious. He said things like, "You're very self-aware, Emma. That's rare." And every time I felt seen, one evening, I got a message from him outside of work hours. It was short, just checking in. "Rough day?" At first, I thought it was sweet. I replied, and we talked for nearly an hour. He told me about his long nights, how difficult it was to separate himself from his patient's pain. He said he felt connected to me in a professional way, of course, but his tone wasn't professional anymore. He began to ask questions that weren't therapeutic. "What kind of man attracts you? Do you ever think about your ex when you're alone?" When I hesitated, he'd soften his voice and say, "You can tell me. This is a safe space." I believed him. Asterisk, over time, the boundaries between therapy and friendship started dissolving. He began calling me by my first name more gently, lingering on it. He'd sit closer during sessions, his tone less clinical, more intimate. Once, after a particularly emotional session, he told me, "You have such a fascinating mind, Emma. It's like I can almost predict how you'll respond." He smiled when he said it, but something about that sentence unsettled me. Predict me? Like a pattern? A formula? Still, I brushed it off. He was helping me. I was getting better, wasn't I? Then came the first rule violation. He mentioned something I hadn't told him. Something I'd only written in my private journal at home. When I asked how he knew, he said, "You told me last week. You must have forgotten." I checked my notes later. I hadn't. That's when I noticed his handwriting on my therapy folder, new notes added after sessions ended. I started feeling watched. Asterisk, Dr. Reed had a way of disarming me even when I tried to pull back. He'd say, "I only want what's best for you, Emma. You've been through so much. You deserve someone who really understands you." And somehow, I believed that meant him. He began sharing things about his life too, or at least what he claimed was his life. He told me about his failed marriage, how his ex-wife didn't understand his passion for psychology. He said, "You remind me of the kind of connection I always wanted, honest, deep, unfiltered." It felt like fate. It felt like I was healing through him. Then one day, he told me he wanted to stop therapy sessions. When I asked why, he said, "Because I don't see you as a patient anymore." He wanted to start over as something more. Asterisk, I told myself it was wrong, unethical even, but there was a part of me that didn't care. After months of loneliness, Dr. Reed was the first person who had made me feel understood. We began meeting outside the office. Cafes, parks, even his apartment once. He called it a new chapter of trust, but something was off. He'd bring up phrases I'd said months ago, almost word for word. He remembered what I wore on specific dates, what song was playing during my breakdowns. Once, I found a folder on his desk labeled Behavioral Pattern E. When I asked what it was, he laughed and said, "You think too much?" But I knew the E stood for Emma. Asterisk one evening. I showed up at his apartment unexpectedly. I had left my scarf there. He wasn't home. The door was unlocked. Inside, I found his study filled with files, not just mine, but others. Dozens of labeled folders with initials, personality notes, emotional triggers, reaction logs. He wasn't just treating people. He was studying us. In my file, underlined. In red ink, it said, "Subject displays strong dependency when mirrored emotionally. Progress satisfactory." My stomach dropped. I wasn't his patient or his partner. I was his experiment. Asterisk, I left that night and never went back. He tried to call, text, even showed up at my apartment building. Each time, his tone shifted from apologetic to coldly analytical. "You're reacting emotionally, Emma. You're not thinking clearly." I realized he wasn't sorry. He was observing me again, even in my anger, even in my fear. Lisa helped me report him to the licensing board. Turns out, several complaints were already pending. He'd been emotionally involved with more than one patient, always women with trauma histories, always those who needed to be believed. He was suspended indefinitely, but the damage he caused didn't disappear with his license. Asterisk, it's been 2 years now. I still go to therapy with someone new, someone safe, but I can't help noticing how I flinch when my new therapist leans forward or when he says my name. Sometimes I wonder if Dr. Reed ever cared about me at all. Maybe in his own way he did. Maybe he fell in love with the version of me he created, the version he could control. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's possession, and maybe that's the scariest red flag of all, when obsession hides behind empathy, and you mistake your therapist's attention for affection. Asterisk, sometimes the people who promise to heal you are the ones who hurt you the most. I still wonder, was he ever truly helping me, or just learning how to break me more beautifully? If you've ever trusted someone a little too much, tell me, how did you know it was time to walk away? Maybe your story isn't so different from mine. And maybe next week, when I tell you about the man who recorded my dreams, you'll realize how close all of us are to losing control of our own minds. This was the red flag report, where love, trust, and danger often sound the same, until it's too late. Have you ever had a dream so vivid that you woke up questioning if it really ended? Now imagine if someone else, someone you trusted, could see those dreams. Record them, replay them, and maybe even change them. Before I tell you this story, I want you to do something for me. Don't close your eyes this time. Keep them open, because what you're about to hear, you'll want to see coming. When I first joined the Dream Research Institute, I thought I was signing up for something revolutionary. They said they were studying lucid dreaming, the science of controlling your subconscious. All I had to do was sleep in their lab for 8 nights, wear a neural headset, and describe what I dreamed about. Easy money, they said. but they never mentioned him. Dr. Adrian Vale. He wasn't like the other scientists, cold, distant, technical. He was calm, gentle, disarmingly human. The kind of man whose voice could lower your guard before you realized you were defenseless. He said things like, "Your dreams are just doors, Mia. I'll help you walk through them safely." I believed him. Maybe I wanted to. The first night in the lab felt like falling asleep in someone's memory. The room was dim, walls covered in soft gray panels that absorbed every sound. Machines hummed quietly, lights blinking like patient eyes in the dark. Dr. Vale stood beside my bed, adjusting the headset, his fingers brushing my hair, too carefully to be an accident. "Don't be afraid if you hear me while you're asleep," he said. "I'll only be guiding you." And I did hear him. Not through the headset, in my dream. A voice familiar and calm, whispering from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Step forward, Mia. I'm watching." The dream started normal. Childhood places. Rainy streets. The smell of my mother's perfume. But then details began changing, small things at first. A photo frame on the wall would show his face instead of mine. My reflection would blink when I didn't, and once I saw him standing across the street in the dream, watching me, smiling. Asterisk when I told him the next morning. He smiled again, but this time his eyes didn't. "That means your mind is connecting with mine," he said. A sign of deep synchronization. He made it sound beautiful, spiritual, but all I felt was exposed dot by the fifth night. I stopped dreaming alone. Every time I closed my eyes, he was already there, waiting, sometimes just watching me, other times touching me, always calm, always in control. He'd say, "You're safe, Mia, you invited me in." When I confronted him during the day, he denied nothing. "Dreams aren't private once they're recorded," he said softly. "You agreed to share them with me, but I never signed anything like that. At least not consciously." That night, I tried to stay awake. I failed. The sixth dream was different. I was back in the lab, but it wasn't a dream anymore. I could feel the air conditioning, hear the monitors beeping, smell the antiseptic, except my body wouldn't move. I could see Dr. Vale standing over me, placing the headset, whispering, "Your body sleeps, but your mind is wide awake. Let me in." And then everything went black. When I woke up, he was sitting beside my bed, smiling like nothing happened. "You stopped breathing for 22 seconds, he said quietly, "but I brought you back." "You're welcome." He said it like he was proud, like I belonged to him now. I tried to quit the study the next day, but the receptionist told me my contract wasn't over. I asked to see it. She handed me a file with my name and my signature on every page. Except I never signed those. They weren't even written in my handwriting. When I left the building, I saw him standing by his car, watching me again. He didn't call out. He just mouthed something through the glass. It looked like, "Go ahead. Try to wake up." That night, I didn't sleep. Or maybe I did. I can't tell anymore. 2 nights later, I woke up in my own apartment, but I wasn't alone. The sound of static filled the room, soft at first, then louder. My laptop was open, playing a distorted video. My face sleeping. From above. The angle was from the ceiling, but I don't have a camera there. In the background, I heard his voice. "You dream beautifully, Mia." My blood turned cold. I unplugged the laptop, threw it across the room. But when I turned on my phone, there was another message, a short clip of my latest dream. Me standing in the street, looking up at a window. His window dot, he was recording my dreams. Not just in the lab, but from anywhere. I called the police. They said there was no proof of illegal surveillance, no physical evidence. The videos were encrypted, vanishing after viewing. Dr. Vale's research institute shut down, no record of it ever existing. No employees, no lease, nothing. Like it was erased overnight, but he wasn't gone. The next week, I started hearing static again, every time I tried to sleep. A faint whisper underneath, almost drowned by the noise. Mia, don't fight it. You belong here. And then I started dreaming again, but this time I wasn't the one asleep. I'd see myself lying on the bed, and him sitting beside me writing notes, adjusting the headset, recording, watching, smiling. Sometimes I wake up gasping, convinced I've escaped. But when I look at the corner of my room, the red recording light still blinks. Asterisk. It's been 7 months since I left the institute. Every night I unplug everything, phone, laptop, even my alarm clock. Still, sometimes I hear that faint static again. Sometimes I wake up and find bruises on my temples, right where the headset used to sit. And sometimes I hear his voice faint inside the static, saying the same line he said the first night we met. Your dreams are just doors. Mia, I'll help you walk through them safely. Except now, I'm not sure if he ever left. If you're listening to this right now, don't just scroll away. Tell me, have you ever dreamt of someone watching you and then seen their face again after you woke up? Because if you have, maybe he's not done recording. This was the red flag report, where nightmares don't end when you wake up. Have you ever dated someone only to realize they weren't entirely real? Not fully themselves, not entirely human. What if someone could study your life, your habits, even your heartbreak, and then step into it, perfectly molded to be everything you thought you wanted? Would you notice? Or would you fall for them all over again? Before I tell you this story, I want you to do something different. Look at your hands. Trace the lines on your fingers. Now imagine that every memory, every story, every little secret you've ever shared with someone you trusted, someone is using it to become them. That's what happened to me. When I first saw Alex, I thought it was impossible. He smiled like my ex, Daniel, laughed at the same jokes, and even walked with that familiar tilt in his shoulders. It wasn't just resemblance, it was perfection. The kind of eerie perfection that makes your stomach twist and your mind scream. This isn't real. We met at a small cafe downtown, one of those brick-walled places where every table smells faintly of espresso and vanilla. He sat at the counter, reading a book I had left on my shelf months ago. I recognized it immediately. My ex had read it too. I laughed nervously. He smiled, nodded, and said, "Great choice. That book. It really changes the way you see people." I felt my heart squeeze. Over the next few days, Alex seemed to know everything about me. He remembered my favorite coffee order, my childhood fear of thunderstorms, even the way I twisted my hair when I was nervous. I started to tell myself it was coincidence. My mind was just connecting the dots. But the coincidences piled up. Every laugh, every smile, every story I shared, he had already predicted. Sometimes finishing my sentences before I could dot, it didn't feel like love. It felt like surveillance. Like he had read my soul, cataloged it, and then tried to become the person who could fit perfectly into my broken heart. I tried to set boundaries, subtly at first. I told him about my ex, only the vague details. But Alex always steered the conversation back to Daniel, asking questions that made me uncomfortable, probing for memories I hadn't shared. It was flattering at first. The way he understood me, the way he mirrored my past as if he had been made for me. But it was suffocating. Then the nightmares began. Every night I dreamt of Daniel, or someone who looked exactly like him, but darker. He would follow me through empty streets, whispering my secrets aloud. The dreams were always in third person, as if I was watching someone else live my life. And every morning, Alex would casually drop knowledge into conversation that mirrored the exact details of those dreams. It was impossible. Until I realized he was watching me while I slept. Or worse, he had been recording every detail of my routines, my habits, my private moments, and molding himself to fit the image of Daniel I still carried in my memory. I confronted him once, casually trying to sound calm. "Alex, why do you know so much about me?" He smiled, that infuriatingly gentle smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just attentive," he said. "Isn't that what you wanted? Someone who really understands you?" I realized then he wasn't just attentive. He was deliberate. He was studying me. And everything I thought I knew about him, about us, was a performance. I tried to walk away. But every time I left, he appeared somewhere I couldn't anticipate, at the cafe I frequented, on the subway, even outside my apartment. It wasn't stalking in the usual sense. It was orchestration. Every encounter perfectly timed. I couldn't escape him. And each time I saw him, he seemed more like Daniel, until I began to feel that my memories of my ex were being rewritten by this man who had learned to imitate him perfectly. I started noticing little inconsistencies. The way Alex would mention a song Daniel never liked, or a restaurant Daniel never went to. The reflection in his eyes was always slightly off, too measured, too rehearsed. But the rest of him, perfect, flawless, dangerous, and I hated myself for being drawn in despite knowing, deep down, that something was horribly wrong. Then came the confrontation. I followed him one evening, shadowing him to a high-rise apartment downtown. Through the window, I saw multiple photos of me pinned to a corkboard, hundreds of them. Screens with text conversations I had never sent. Notes cataloging my habits, my moods, my favorite phrases. And in the center of it all, a mannequin wearing a green scarf Daniel had worn once. He wasn't dating me. He was becoming my ex. I fled. I changed apartments, phones, emails. Tried to erase my digital footprint. But the traces remained. I would wake in the middle of the night, feeling someone's gaze even when I was alone. Random strangers on the street would smile at me, their mannerisms faintly Daniel-esque. Every social media interaction felt curated, manipulated, and I began to understand he wasn't just obsessed with me. He was obsessed with my memory of Daniel. He wanted to replace him completely. I finally reported him after weeks of paranoia and sleepless nights. The police found nothing. No records. No apartment lease. No friends. Even the photographs and devices I discovered had vanished when I returned with law enforcement. It was as if he had erased himself from the world, but not from me. Months later, I met someone new. Kind, gentle, unaware of the nightmare that had shaped me. I tried to trust again. But sometimes, in a crowded cafe, a familiar tilt of shoulders or a laugh that echoes Daniel's makes my chest tighten. And for a split second, I swear I see Alex's eyes behind them, studying, mimicking, waiting dots. So tell me, if someone could step into your life and become your perfect memory, would you notice? Or would you fall in love again? With a ghost? This was the red flag report, where obsession hides behind charm, and the line between love and possession disappears. Next week, I'll tell you about the woman who vanished after her twin appeared in her apartment. And when you hear her story, you'll start wondering, how much of your life is truly yours?